Hey, this is Chad Shiffer, and welcome to Chad Shiffer's Genealogy. Today we're going to get the opportunity to meet Jackson Chapman. Jackson is going to be my son-in-law come October 4th of 2024 this year. He is marrying my oldest daughter, Melanie Shiffer. So right after the intro, you'll get a chance to meet Jackson Chapman. What is your full name?
Jackson Drew Chapman.
And what is your birth date?
January 3rd of 2002.
Where were you born?
Murray, Kentucky.
Do you have any nicknames? And if so, where did they come from?
I used to have a nickname from about second grade till it stopped about junior year of high school. I was called Bagels by basically everybody. Friends, teachers, other parents, coaches. They call me Bagels. And the story of that was I had a really bad speech impediment when I was in second grade. And my brother asked me for some plastic baggies, and I called them Bagels, and then he made fun of me and said, I'm going to start calling you Bagels, and it literally stuck from second grade till about junior year. And I'll meet the occasional person that still calls me Bagels, but that's the only nickname I ever had.
All right. And when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Major League Baseball player, always.
All right.
My brother and I were always trying to be in the MLB, and we learned that we were not skilled enough to do that soon to follow.
All right. And where did you grow up at?
Murray, Kentucky.
Okay. And what schools did you go to?
I went to Benton Elementary from kindergarten to third grade, and then after that I went to North Callaway Elementary, and then Callaway County Middle School, and then Callaway County High School, and now I'm at Murray State University.
Okay. And what year did you graduate high school?
2021.
What's your highest level of education so far?
College. I'm my junior year of college right now.
Okay. And which college do you go to?
Murray State University.
Okay. Did you win any awards during your education at all?
Oh yeah, so there's this thing called the MOS testing, which is a Microsoft Office Specialist. I'm certified in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Access, anything that has to do with Microsoft. I got those awards and certificates. Got some academic all states for the sports that I was involved with. Maintained at least a 3.75 GPA or higher. So you were granted academic all state, and I did that all 4 years of high school.
Okay. And what was your favorite subject in school?
Definitely social studies. Loved history, just learning about what happened in the past. And the thing I loved about social studies was there's no formulas. There was no, hey, you have to do this to learn it. It was already set in stone. Hey, this is what happened in history. You just got to learn what happened. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And so, yeah.
Okay. Is there a teacher you remember that was influential to you? If so, what was their name and how did they affect you?
Man, I could choose 2 to 3 people here. In fact, I've even talked to Melanie about inviting some of these teachers to our wedding. So I guess I'm going to name all 3 of them. Miss McCallan was my 7th grade English teacher, and she treated me like I was her own son. We joked around. We could have conversations about stuff other than school, but she also treated me like I was her son. So she held me to a higher behavioral standard than all the rest of the students. But that woman did so much for me, and just who I am as a 7th grader. You know, you're not very mature yet, but she kind of helped me on a path to become more mature. And then I had a Mr. Scott Pyle. He was my 8th grade science teacher, and to this day I still keep in contact with him. We text back and forth. We loved basketball. We just loved each other's company. He taught me kind of really how to be a man in today's world, and also just be an example for other students in the high school level. Since he was in 8th grade, he's like, all right, here's what you're going to take over to the high school level. And then when I got to high school, one of my favorite teachers of all time, her name was Miss Ashley Fritchie, and she just did so much for me in terms of what I wanted to do for my future, what I was going to do in college. She really just taught me all of these things to kind of just better myself for my future endeavors. And so I'll be forever grateful for those 3 teachers.
Okay. How would you describe yourself as a student, both socially and academically?
Socially, I got along with everybody. There wasn't really a person that I didn't try to talk to. my senior year. I won the senior superlative of best personality, so I kind of took that as, my senior student body kind of thinks of me as a guy that can talk to everybody, and so I wasn't shy to have a conversation with, someone that was in band, or someone that did robotics, or someone that was really involved with the computers. I wasn't either of those things. Like, I never did that stuff in high school, but I would still try to have conversations with those people and just try to make them laugh. And then academically, the best way I would say it is, if I was interested in the subject, I was an excellent student. If I wasn't interested in the subject, you were still going to get a good version of Jackson, but not the best version of Jackson. So that's how I would describe is, if I really loved what you taught, I would be your best student, but if I didn't, I'd be wandering off or talking to my friends or stuff like that. So kind of double-edged sword there. Kind of just, didn't really even depend on the teacher, just kind of depended on what you taught. So, yeah.
And what did you like most, and what did you like least about school?
I loved building the relationships with friends. Some of my lifelong friends I met through going to Callaway County. 3 of them are going to be in my some of my best men and groomsmen. Just building those relationships with those people. Playing sports in high school, obviously I loved all those aspects. The least thing I did, probably just the fact that some of the people that I made friends with, I'm never going to see again the rest of my life. So that's kind of sad to think that I had those 4 years with them, and then I'm never going to really talk to them, because like some of the guys that were on my baseball team, I haven't talked to since senior year of high school. So that's kind of sad to think that I needed to appreciate what I had when I was in high school. So that would be the least favorite thing.
Okay. What was your favorite music or band when you were in high school?
I was a big rap guy, being born, basically not born in a basketball locker room, but when I grew up, my dad would take me to the high school basketball locker room, and that's what I would listen to, was rap music. And so some of my favorites were like Travis Scott, Drake, some of those guys. But I found myself listening to all genres of music. I like country, I like Chris Stapleton. I like old school rock, like AC/DC, stuff like that. I like Christian music. Sometimes you'll catch me listen to a guy like Josh Groban, who just sings all these melodies and is singing at the top of his lungs. I like R&B. One of my favorite R&B singers, his name's Giveon. So I like all genres of music. But in high school, it was mainly just rap, so I could kind of pump myself up for whatever sporting event I was playing in.
And what kind of jobs did you have when you were in school?
I worked at the movie theater when I was in high school. I did that for 2 years. I worked there as an usher. Met some of my really great friends at the movie theater. Let's see what else I did. I would clean gutters at people's houses when I was younger. I would just go knock door to door and ask, "Can I clean your gutters?" And they loved that, so I did. And then, let's see, I babysat. Which I wouldn't really call a job. It's just, hey, you want to babysit for me? I was like, sure. Mm-hmm. So those were the 3 that I kind of did growing up when I was in school.
Okay. And did you have any pets as a child?
I never had a pet. My brother wasn't a big fan of pets. My dad wasn't a big fan of pets. So ultimately, it was kind of shot down in my household to never have a pet.
Did you play any sports?
Yes, sir. I did play. Played the big 3 of baseball, basketball, football, and enjoyed every single one of them. Football, I had to quit because I had a pretty bad injury. My mom said, "Yeah, you're not playing the sport ever again." But then I stuck with baseball and basketball. And I'd say if I had to rank the 3, it'd be basketball, baseball, football in terms of the ones I love the most. And try to still keep in contact with the guys that I played high school ball with. Not to go back to your glory days, but you were with each other for this amount of months throughout the year. You built lifelong friendships. So I will forever be grateful for the teammates that I had playing the sports I played.
Okay. And what is your earliest memory that you can remember?
My cousins and I, we were at my house, and we were using the sprinkler and the hose in our backyard. And I can remember they all ran inside, and they told me to turn the hose off, but I didn't know how to turn the hose off. I was 3 to 4 years old. So we run back inside, and about 3 hours later, the whole backyard is flooded, and all of my cousins and my brother blamed me. And I just remember one of my first memories was getting in trouble from my parents for not turning off the hose and flooding the entire backyard. And they were talking about, this is going to cost us a fortune on the water bill, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, I'm 4 years old. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll take my punishment. So that's one of my first memories, was actually getting in trouble. So.
Okay. And who would you say was the most influential person to you as a child?
As a child, it'd be my mom. I'm a classic example of a mama's boy. She is one of the strongest women I know, not just physically. She's pretty physically strong. You know, she can carry her weight when it comes to moving furniture or stuff like that, but she just is so mentally and emotionally strong. That woman just, it seems like nothing bothered her, and she could take a hit on the chin and be fine the next day. And so anytime I needed someone to talk to, or a shoulder to cry on, or just a hug, like, my mom was there, very loving, very supportive. And so as a kid, that's just really who I looked to in terms of who I really looked up to. And I was like, I want to be just like my mom when I grow up.
Okay. And what did you do during the summers when you were a kid?
Church camps, travel baseball, play outside of the park with my brother, wiffle ball with my brother, and just basically, if I could be doing an activity, I was doing that. We would go to the pond and fish with my cousins. Anything that I could do to be outside, really, was what I was going to be doing during the summers.
Okay. And what were you most afraid of as a child?
So, it's still one of my biggest fears to this day, but I hate mice. I can't really do mice. I don't know why. I can do like snakes, spiders, all those creepy animals. I'm fine with those. But when it comes to mice, I will squeal like a little girl. I hate mice. Cannot do them. But in terms of like a more serious fear, as a kid, actually, I really used to have really bad nightmares. When I first learned about 9/11 as a kid, I used to have really bad nightmares that 9/11 would happen either at my house, at my school, at my church, or anything like that. And so for about 2 months, I was having nightmares constantly over 9/11 happening in different places. And so mom and dad definitely helped me out of that. So as a kid, that was probably like my really biggest fear, was something like that was going to happen. And it also didn't help that I watched the movie Red Dawn, where something similar like that happens, where the Mexican militia just come down to high school and, you know, take over the place. So that, combined with learning about 9/11, did not go well for my nightmares. So I'd just say nightmares in general were kind of like my biggest fears.
Okay. And who was your best friend growing up? And are you still in touch with them today?
I'm not going to say the basic answer of my brother, even though he is one of my best friends. But my best friend growing up, his name was actually also Jackson Civils. So we did everything growing up. We had a bed at each other's houses. We spent the night nonstop. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing me or him at a school event, or our dads coached basketball. So we were always together. And I'm actually not in touch with him. He moved away in 7th grade, and ever since he really moved away, we just kind of kept in contact for like 7th and 8th grade and a little bit in high school. But he's actually now playing college basketball at Wofford. And so anytime I see Wofford Terriers play, I'll always go see how many points Jackson Civils had, because just kind of, the lifelong friend that I had growing up. So that would be my childhood best friend, was Jackson Civils.
Okay. And what extracurriculars did you participate in when you were a teenager?
I did FBLA, which is Future Business Leaders of America. I did FFA. I did sports, obviously. I was involved in my church youth ministry. I did 1 year of beta, which I hated. I did 1 year academic team in middle school. Didn't love that either. The only reason I was on the team was because I knew a lot about sports, and sometimes the academic team people would ask sports questions, and anytime those were asked, Jackson Chapman was always going to be the one to answer it. So yeah, those are the extracurriculars I was involved with.
Okay. And did you have an idol or a hero that you had when you were growing up?
It's kind of funny. My hero was Spider-Man growing up. When I was a kid, my room was filled with Spider-Man. I had a Spider-Man fat head, I had Spider-Man blanket, Spider-Man pillow. I had all the different costumes of Spider-Man. I used to go around to like the grocery store or church and web sling things. And my mom was like, Jackson, you've got to stop. I was like, but I'm trying to be Spider-Man, Mom. So that was my hero growing up, was I wanted to be Peter Parker. I wanted to be Spider-Man. I grew out of it eventually. But as a child, if you would have asked me, besides playing in MLB, what I wanted to be Spider-Man.
Okay. Who were your favorite sports players?
Growing up was Russell Westbrook, Steve Nash, Albert Pujols, and Yadier Molina. I know you're the Cubs guy, so that kind of hurts to hear, but those were up there. And then basically anytime there was a really good UK basketball player like John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, those guys, my brother and I idolized those guys growing up. And so those were kind of my go-tos in terms of who I loved watching and who I wanted to be when I grew up.
So now we're going to your family dynamics and relationships with your family.
Okay.
So who are your parents?
Edward Chapman and Christy Chapman, but she was Christy Carson formerly.
Okay. And do you know their birth dates?
My dad is April 21st, 1973, and then my mom is August 4th, 1976.
And in what ways would you say your parents had influenced you the most?
Just how to carry myself in today's society. I grew up with Christian values and Christian morals, and they always wanted me to be different than your average kid, whether that be how I carried myself in the classroom, how I carried myself on the basketball court, whatever it was, they wanted me to have an influence of Christ in everybody that I saw. And so you'll get that when your dad's a pastor, because, you know, if you're a pastor's kid, you're kind of bought into this already. But, you know, just seeing how well my mom and dad coincide in terms of parenting, loving each other, and just being each other's spouses, it kind of pushed me and my brother to want to live the same way. And so we bought into those Christian values pretty early on. Now, it's not to say we didn't strand or go away from those in our teenage years, but as we matured and grew up, we realized, hey, this is where we need to be. And so I'll forever be grateful for my parents just on how they raised me and the amount of love and support they showed me growing up.
And what are some of your memories you have of each of your parents?
With my mom, it's just her goofiness. Now, she is such a loving and caring person, but she says some of the goofiest things. Like, she's so smart, but when it comes to sometimes common knowledge, it kind of lacks her. So just some of the things that she says just really make me laugh. And my dad actually, in his phone notes, would write down some of the things that she would say that would be really, really head scratching. Like, did you really just say that, Mom? You're a school teacher. You should know this. So just her, and just her goofiness, I will always remember. And then with my dad, just how hard he worked, whether it was teaching school, coaching basketball, being a pastor of a church, while also being a really loving father. Now, some people, if they watch my father and I's dynamic, they would be like, oh, you guys hate each other because of how we treated each other on the basketball court or the baseball field or a football field. And it really wasn't that we hated each other. It's just we both demanded such excellence from each other that when one of us failed one another, our emotions got the best of us, obviously. But, you know, sometimes I would butt heads with my dad on the basketball court and we would be yelling at each other. But at the end of the day, there was not another person in the world that I wanted to make proud of than my father. And it was evident of that my last ever high school game. I'm giving hugs to other coaches, other players, but when I got to my dad, I just grabbed him and I just started crying. I was like, this is the last time you're going to be my coach. And that moment right there, I'll never forget, because just the lifetime of workouts, batting practice, shooting practice, the amount of times we've yelled at each other, the amount of hugs that we've had over winning a championship or a trophy, all kind of culminated in that one moment of this is it. And so just the memory of my dad being my coach. Now, he wasn't the typical coaches, like if the people always have this negative connotation. Oh, you probably give your son preferential treatment because he's your son. That was not my father. He was the complete opposite, actually. He disciplined me more. He expected more of me and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I knew who my biggest cheerleader was, and it was my dad.
And who were your paternal grandparents?
My dad, his father is Donnie Chapman, and his mom is Janice Chapman. And I know their birthdays. I don't know exactly what year they were born, but if I did some math, I could probably do it.
If you knew the month and date, that's fine.
Yeah. So my granddad is September 30th, and then my grandma is May 27th or 28th. One of those two.
Okay.
One of those two. I'm bad with birthdays.
Okay. In what ways would you say that your grandparents had influenced you?
So I'm convinced that my grandma has never messed up in her life or sinned because of how much of a saint she is. So sweet. Every person that knows her is impacted by her kindness, her generosity, anything like that. And she genuinely cares the best for each person except for herself. Like she wants others' needs above her own. And that's just who she was. And then my granddad was just... He impacted me just how much of a jokester he was. He would pick on her and my dad and my uncle, and just he would always at family gatherings would just bring such a laugh and such a joy to the table. So that's what I'm going to remember from them.
What are some of your greatest memories you had of each one of your grandparents?
The thing that I'm always going to take away from my granddad was, so this is the only person in the world that's allowed me to call this nickname. He called me Cracker Jack. And he would always say, he'd always put up a fist and he goes, Cracker Jack. And he does it every time he sees me. And I know that I'm with my granddad when I hear those words. And so it's just special because of the bond that we have. I wouldn't want anybody else to call me Cracker Jack besides my granddad. And then with my grandma, it was the thing that I loved about her was her refusal to think I could do wrong. Because, I would have a rough shooting game in basketball. I'd go like 2 for 9 or 2 for 10. And she goes, Jack, were you feeling bad? I was like, no, Grandma. She goes, well, was the ball, was it deflated or was it too inflated? I was like, no, Grandma. She goes, well, was the rim too much to the left or to the right? Like, she just could not believe that Jackson had a bad shooting night. And that's just how much she loved me, was she thought Jackson can do no wrong. He would never just... on purpose shoot 2 for 10 from the 3-point line. So that's just one thing I love about her, was that she just refused to believe that I could do anything wrong, and that's why I love her.
Okay. And how about your maternal grandparents on your mom's side?
Yeah, so my granddad, his name is Jackie Carson, and then my mom's birth mom actually died when my mom was 5. Her name was Beverly. But then my mom's stepmom, her name is Rashila Carson, and she has been there since my mom was 6 years old. So she's basically my mom's mom. But Jackie Carson and Rashila Carson.
Okay. In what ways would you say that your grandparents, on your mom's side, influenced you the most?
My Nana, she influences me just by her youthfulness. She loves watching new movies or new genres of music, and she tries to, when I was in middle school and high school, I thought, oh, my Nana's just being weird. She's trying to be hip. But she actually was genuinely curious about all the things that it took to be hip. And she's just a grandma that really just wants to be involved with her grandchildren's life. So, me and her can talk about Hunger Games or new music or the new iPhone. Like, she's always had the updated iPhone. You'll never catch her without an updated iPhone, which is kind of weird to see from a woman who's in her 60s. You don't really see that many 6-year-olds have iPhones. So, and then for my granddad, when I was a kid, he really was involved. He always came to our sporting events. He always came to any kind of church event, like if we had a award or anything like that, any school event, he was really involved in. So before they departed and got divorced, he was really involved in our lives. So
okay. You have one brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carson Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday is August 7th, 1999.
Okay. And what can you tell me about him?
That dude, I don't need to cry. I don't know why.
All right.
That dude's a fighter. He was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 12 years old. Had leukemia and was at St. Jude Children's Hospital for 3 years. And I never once heard him complain. Not once in that 3-year span. Just his willingness to say, I'm going to beat it, like it's nothing. Like he wasn't scared. He had all the confidence in the world that he was going to beat it. And that pushed me to want to believe in anything because, I'm watching my brother, go bald and go through cancer treatment and he's got a needle in his back every day, stuff like that. He's got chemo treatment. He's got a port in his, just the dude battled and battled and battled and always he'd put my happiness above his. When I would go visit him at St. Jude, he'd be like, Jack, how you doing? How's basketball going? How's football going? Just like, he never wanted me to ask about how he was doing. He always wanted to know how I was doing. And even post his cancer treatment, he has always looked out for me. And he is the epitome of a perfect big brother. So I will always be forever in debt to him for how well he treated me as a big brother.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
He's just a solid dude.
Yeah.
I'll never say that to his face either. So
That one's still recording, so now you can see it.
oh gosh.
All right. Next is talking about your spouse. So I know you're not married yet, but you are engaged.
I am engaged, yes. I met Melanie Shiffer on the intramural football fields at Murray State University. And our first conversation, I was just kind of like, oh, who's this girl? I had one of my good friends and one of her good friends at the time were dating. And, we had played a intramural football game together. And they're talking, and so I went over and talked to him, and she was there with her friend, and we just kind of started talking, and I was like, wow, that's a very beautiful girl. And one of the first initial attractions to her was her knowledge of baseball. And, now I didn't love that she was a Cubs fan because I'm a Cardinals guy, but she actually knew baseball. The people that I dated in the past did not care whatsoever about sports. Not a care in the world. But the fact that she knew who was on the Cubs and she could tell me what they were good at and all these things, I was like, that's very attractive. And so that was kind of my initial attraction to her, was her knowledge of baseball.
Where'd she get her knowledge of baseball from?
It had to be Mr. Chad Schiffer, who's behind the camera. Had to be. I don't know who else it'd be from.
So where did you go on your first date?
We went to Popeyes. So our first date, she was not hungry, but I was very hungry. And she's like, oh, you can just go grab some dinner for yourself, and then we'll just hang out after. And so I was like, oh, I really want Popeyes. So we went to Popeyes, and then we sat in a parking lot near her residential college from about 7 p.m. to about 3 a.m. just talking. And from that date on, I was like, this girl's special, because I have never once had a conversation for this long with any person, not just a girl, with any person. And it never stopped flowing back and forth. Like, there wasn't a 15-minute awkward phase where we were on our phones, or, we just kind of stared out in the window. No, we sat and just talked to each other and learned so much about each other. So our first date was pretty memorable because we obviously lost track of time. Again, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. is just kind of wild that we lasted that long on our first date. So I always remember our first date.
You haven't had a wedding yet, but you're kind of starting to plan one. So when are you looking at getting married?
October 4th is the day that we're going to get married. And in terms of the planning, she's a much bigger planner than I am. So I'm going to say yes. Yes, ma'am, a lot to what she has to say in terms of planning the wedding. I've got some things that I kind of want at my wedding, but I believe her and trust her taste and whatever she wants at her wedding, because let's be real, the wedding is more about the bride than it is about the groom. No one's really going to say it, but I'll go ahead and do it. So whatever she wants to make her happy on her wedding day, I will say yes to. So I'm looking forward to it. Suzanne, they're two peas in a pod when it comes to planning. We've been engaged for 2 weeks, and we've already bought the dress. We've already booked the honeymoon. We've already done so many things that other people would be like, "You've been engaged for 2 weeks and you've already got all this stuff planned?" Yeah, that's just who she is, and that's who Suzanne is.
So who are you guys looking and planning of having in your wedding party?
I'm looking to have my brother Carson as my best man, and then 3 of my childhood best friends, Caden Emerson, Evan Garrison, Jarrett Darnell, and then her brother Drew will be as part of my groomsmen. And then one of my really close friends that I actually met only about 3 to 4 years ago. We worked at a church camp called Crossings, and his name is Blake Boswell, and we have just really connected and become really good friends since then. So those will be in mine. Yeah. So on Melanie's side, it's going to be Ashley as her maid of honor. Then it's going to be Michaela, her cousin. Then it's going to be Lily Vanover, one of her really good friends, and then her best friend Serenity Metcalf, and then Drew's girlfriend Erin will be in her bridal party. So that's who's going to be in the wedding. Okay.
Where are you guys planning on going for your honeymoon?
We have booked a cruise to go to Haiti, to Jamaica, and to the Grand Cayman Islands. I am not a cruise guy myself, but she's been on, how many has she been on? 2 or 3? She's been on 2 or 3. About 2 or 3. So she is way more experienced on the cruise than I am, but I'm very excited. My family's idea of a vacation was, hey, let's go to a ballpark we've never been to. So a different type of feel for a vacation. So I'm very excited for it.
What is your favorite travel destination?
Have to be Florida, because from when I was in kindergarten till a senior year of high school, every fall break my family went to Destin, Florida. And we know everything there is about Destin, Florida now. We went so many times. But my personal favorite destination is every time we go to an MLB ballpark. Our family's bucket list is to go to all the MLB parks, and we went to 15 of the 30 parks. And I'd have to say my favorite one that I've went to so far, man, it's hard to beat Busch Stadium, but I've went so many times that it kind of gets old.
Obviously Wrigley Field.
Wrigley was cool. Minnesota's was really nice. Target Field's really cool. We went to the old Texas Stadium, so we haven't went to Globe Life, but the old Arlington ballpark was actually really something to marvel at. It was awesome. So basically any baseball trip we can go on, I'm down for.
Okay. And what are some of your fondest memories you've had from your family vacations?
Man, the road trips. I'm a big road trip guy. My family loves doing trivia on road trips, whether that's old music knowledge, old family knowledge, anything like that. We try to kill time, and obviously we're super competitive, so we keep score of who's doing the best in all the trivia games. So I love the road trip aspect of it. It seems like we don't get bored really when we're doing that. The baseball games that we went to have been awesome. We went to the Rays and Dodgers this year, and there was 24 combined runs in the game. So it was just an offensive explosion. And so we're sitting there. We don't even really have a favorite team that we cheer for every time. It's just we love baseball. We love the atmosphere. So those would probably be my favorite elements of our vacations.
Okay. And have you ever traveled outside of the United States?
I've not, but I'm going to on our cruise. Right. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to have to get a passport. I've also never flown before. My dad is a firm believer in driving everywhere. So I'm finally going to fly for the first time and go out of the country for our honeymoon.
What place does religion have in your life?
A big part. Following Christ is something I take very seriously. I look forward to just following his guidance and his worshiping him every single day. I've grown up in the church. I worked at a church camp. My brother worked at a church camp, and so just what it means to be a Christ follower is something that I'm always going to cherish and behold. And that was instilled in me by my parents, and so that it always will have a big role in my life.
Okay. And what do you like to do in your spare time?
I love playing sports, watching movies, hanging out with my girlfriend. Oh, sorry, fiance.
Right.
I like. Sometimes I just like driving around, listening to music. I like some video games. I like binge watching some TV shows sometimes. I've been known to stay up all night watching a TV show here or there. So, really, if you have an activity planned for me, I'm more than likely going to do it. So that's just the type of guy I am. I don't really have a set in stone of these are my favorite hobbies. If it's something I've never tried before, maybe I'll love it. So,
right. So, what accomplishments are you most proud of in your life?
I'm most proud of working at that church camp. Was a really big thing in my life. I've been accepted for numerous internships. I've worked at CFSB. I've worked with a basketball program, and just stuff like that. I've been proud of. I've accomplished a lot post high school in terms of sports wise. I've been coaching basketball, and we won the two-way sectional championship last year and the district championship. Coaching, I feel like I'm going to have a lot more accolades when I start coaching, like if I become a head coach someday. Looking forward to those future accomplishments.
Okay. And what would you say is your happiest memory?
Happiest memory? Got to be proposing to my fiance, Melanie Shiffer. The whole planning process behind it was very stressful, but when we actually got her there and we actually got to, when I got to be on one knee and I just looked up and saw her, I was like, wow, this is who I'm going to be with the rest of my life. And so that's got to be one of the happiest moments of my life, and probably going to get trumped by our wedding day. So this will probably be number 2. But for now, the number one thing that's made me the most happy was proposing to Melanie.
Okay. And what are some of your favorite TV shows you've watched over the years?
My favorite TV show of all time is How I Met Your Mother, and then followed by probably The Office, Breaking Bad, this show called New Girl, Stranger Things, this show called Scrubs. Basically, if I can binge watch 7 or 9 seasons of your show and I enjoy your show, I'll love the show. So, but How I Met Your Mother will always be my favorite TV show of all time. Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie is The Patriot with Mel Gibson, followed behind Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Those two, they're 1A, 1B for me. Those are just phenomenal movies. I love them both.
Okay. And who are your favorite sports teams? Just start off with baseball.
Baseball is the St. Louis Cardinals. For the NFL, it's the Minnesota Vikings. For the NBA, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then college-wise, it's any UK or Murray State sport. So those would have to be my favorite college. But the teams that, if I had to rank my fandom, it would be OKC, and it'd be the Cardinals, and then UK. And then the Vikings probably have to be last because I just became a fan of the Vikings. But the more I watch the Vikings, the higher they'll grow on the fandom. So,
hopefully they'll put less stress on you.
Yes.
The years go by.
Yes.
So, and maybe win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would love to watch Super Bowl. I would love to.
What are your favorite foods?
Favorite foods? I love spaghetti. I love pizza. I love chicken. Chicken parm. Italian stuff I'm really big into. I love breakfast food. Pancakes, waffles, biscuits, muffins, anything breakfast-wise I'm down for. So, yeah.
Okay. And what's your favorite restaurant?
Whatever pizza place we went to last night is up there now. Palmero's. Holy cow, it was awesome. Favorite fast food would either be Culver's or Chick-fil-A. And then favorite sit down, Mr. B's is up there. Again, Murray does not have a ton of options, and that's really all I know is Murray. Either Mr. B's or Buffalo Wild Wings. One of those are my favorite sit downs.
Okay. And what was your first car?
First car, and it's the car I have right now. It is a 2016 Toyota Corolla, and I love her. Her name's Carla. Carla the Corolla. She gets the job done.
Where have you lived throughout your life?
I lived in Almo, which is a county out in Murray. I lived there until I was a freshman in high school, and then when I was a freshman in high school, we moved to the city of Murray so that we could be closer to school and stuff like that. So, but I've lived in Murray my entire life.
If you could describe yourself to future family members, your great-grandchildren, generations down the road that you aren't even a thought in your mind right now,
Right.
but who have not been born yet, what would you want them to know about you and your life up to this point?
I would want them to know that I'm just a happy-go-lucky person. You don't really see me have really bad days. You see me have bad moments, but I don't let those bad moments turn into bad days. And that's advice that I would give to them was don't let bad things that happen in your life, don't let them turn into bad days. Let it be bad moments where you're down in the dumps for a day or for an hour or two and then move on. I'm a go with the flow type person, and you either are going to be a go with the flow type person or you're going to marry somebody that's going to plan everything, and that's what I'm marrying in with Melanie Shiffer. And so, again, grateful for that. So either one you can be a part of. You can either be the planning or you could be, hey, is this happening tomorrow? Sure, I'll be there. Just the go with it kind of guy, that's who I was. Wow, it feels weird to say that I was, because these are going to be people that I'm never going to see. So that's kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, just happy-go-lucky. Don't let the bad moments in your life turn into bad days. And just go with the flow. Your life's too short to stress out about so many different things. You know, in my mind, the worst thing that could happen to me is I'm going to die and I'm going to heaven. So I'm not really worried about dying. So if you can kind of see the worst case scenario of each problem or each kind of scenario that you're in and be like, I can handle the worst scenario, you should be good in life. So that would be my advice was be happy-go-lucky. Don't have a bad day. Go with the flow and think about the worst thing that can happen in this scenario. And if you can handle that worst scenario, you should be all right in life.